certainly here. Welcome everyone to Scientist vs. Sci-fi. We have three fantastic sci-fi authors here, one of whom is also a scientist, and so I'm assuming you will be switching teams at some point. But let me just introduce our fantastic panelists. We have author Traci Harding. Yes.
Hi. Hi guys.
We have author Kylie Chan.
Hello.
And Dr. Candice Goodwin, scientist/author. I'll take my seat now. Why is science and sci-fi at war, I guess, is the first question. Why can't we be friends?
We actually are friends. I got on the phone to Candice the other day.
Science was in bed with me this morning.
And we were discussing what we were going to talk about on the panel, and I thought that Candice would be all up for no, scientists would never lie to the public because the government paid them to do it. She's going, oh yeah, no, I agree with that, yeah, absolutely. So it's like everything we spoke about,
so
we agreed
Candice
on.
has never been paid by the government to lie.
Do we need to confect some kind of conflict here just to make this more interesting?
No, that wouldn't be fair.
Okay, all right.
Exactly, it would be 2-on-1. That would not be fair, unless we can pick on you, Lee.
Please don't. This is my first day.
All right, let's pick on Lee.
That panel happens at the end of the day. So, I mean, we live in a world where the everyday science is more and more resembling the science fiction that we grew up on. I guess the first question is, how can sci-fi keep up with what the modern world is up to?
Very good question. So, sci-fi, the world's changing at such a fast pace that I don't think sci-fi's going to have a problem. Our imaginations will keep on going. The science that is developed will trigger our imaginations, and we'll keep on growing. It is just interesting how quickly sci-fi is becoming like science fact. So I am a biologist that studied genetics, so I'm very into the genetic revolution and what's going on with that. So to think that when I did my PhD, you had a 1 in 7 shot of sequencing a gene, and now you can sequence the whole human genome, and people are altering their genome in their basements. Like, that is how quickly it has changed. So things like the X-Men or the Boys, if you guys have seen that show, like, it is not that far off, and that is massively scary.
I totally forgotten what I was going to say. No, it's completely gone out of my head.
We, as sci-fi writers, the comment is made, we are living in the dystopian nightmare already. But there will reach a point where humanity reaches singularity. We upload all of our consciousness into the cloud, and then if there's a lack of conflict, then there's a lack of stories to have about them. So when you're writing sci-fi, you need to include conflict. So take the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. He's got a very advanced, scientifically enlightened society, and when you get to that point, where's the conflict? So it's hard as a sci-fi writer to have a future utopia where there's actually conflict in it. I just put cats in because cats are assholes.
Or dragons.
Well, the dragons, dragons are also, humanity has to make a choice between two alien species that are visiting us. Both of them are assholes, yep.
But what I was going to say was, when I'm actually looking for what's coming, I'll usually go and look for those scientists that have been booted out of university because whatever they're researching does not go down with the status quo. And then they're really onto something, because all the people that are in unis have kind of built their careers on whatever information, and these scientists are coming along and upturning that. And so that's where I usually go to look for what's going to happen next, and then take it to the next level of what's going to happen next. But the singularity thing is really scary. Like this whole, people having a party when somebody gets microchipped, that horrifies me because they say you're going to be superhuman. Oh my God, we're going to get integrated with like hardware and we're going to be superhuman. But I think the more
I'm sorry, I have to stop for 5 minutes. I'm being upgraded.
I kid you not,
I've crashed.
Seriously, I was at a talk with NASA this week and they had software updates close down their system and it's like, okay, this is a universal problem. Come on.
Exactly.
Yes, that happened to me. I was talking to a guy from New York. We were talking contracts. He opened his computer and it had shut down for update.
It's very scary. And, but I think that's kind of, it's just taking us, because they don't seem to realise that sooner or later, those machines are going to become consciously aware, and then you're just going to be the machine's little puppy. You're not going to be superhuman. You're not going to have a choice in anything you do, if you're going where the science is going, and that's where the science is going.
Actually, you mentioned the singularity, which I think is a very interesting concept, but I think everyone has a very different idea of what that is. I mean, you guys are all like sci-fi creatives. What is the singularity then for each of you?
For me, as I said, it's minds uploaded into the cloud, becoming free of body and becoming a disembodied intelligence.
Yeah, that's when the machine becomes self-aware. That's the singularity.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So what does that mean then, I think, for both society and then I guess you guys as well as creators?
Have you seen Terminator?
Yeah. So
that's what it means.
Okay, so big metal like skeletal foot crushing the skull.
I have explored that in my sci-fi, in the idea that two of the greatest pleasures that you can experience are food and sex. And if you're uploaded into the cloud, you can't experience either of them. So,
but you can have sensors that'll probably crash.
Yeah, so these guys are going on the tech aspect of it. I'm definitely still looking at the biological aspect of it being really, really scary because we are hardware with an operating system that's our genetics. And I'm very much interested in how we are manipulating that right now. So just shameless self-promotion. So my book series called Enter Entropy, it basically chases what's going on in the genetic revolution, and we look at it from academia, industry, and then to the point where government needs to provide oversight, because you've got scientists in the lab in academia who are completely limited as to what they can do by ethics and funding. As soon as you go to industry and commerce, these guys have very little in the way of ethics and a hell of a lot of money and power. So who's making the decisions? The people with money and power. And government and some
the machine once it takes over.
That's right, the machine that's leading the powerful Fortune 500 companies. So alphabet agencies and the government will not be able to provide oversight. So we're going to have like all these rogue people either personally being rebels and upgrading themselves, or you're going to have the Fortune 500s choosing their people, and there's going to be a class divide. And honestly, it's the same class divide that we have right now. It's going to be the wealthy versus everyone else. It's going to be those getting a genetic advantage versus everyone else, and that is frightening.
Well, the genetic thing too, like with genetically modifying food, for example, like they were talking about junk DNA and how that they weren't sure what it was for, so therefore they called it junk DNA. But there was also another argument that could be contributing to other bodies, because my work is very spiritual. I talk about all the different spiritual bodies that we have within this body. And I mean, one of the things about junk DNA was actually maybe it was feeding those spiritual bodies rather than our physical body, and them taking it out of there was actually robbing us of our soul connection, which is also very scary.
So we've gone incredibly dystopic within the first 5 minutes. I mean, we've sort of there's a long history of dystopia in sci-fi. It's it's the most fashionable form of sci-fi these days. Certainly, is that sort of post-apocalyptic stuff, or the sort of cyberpunk, like it's always like there's acid rain and everyone's eating noodles, and you cannot sleep because there are neon lights coming through your tiny apartment. Like, wait. It feels like every day brings us closer to this kind of dystopia.
Yep.
Do you think that is there a moral obligation then to be writing better futures, or are we doomed to end up in like the crappiest version of Blade Runner?
Well, that's what I like to do. I like to write beautiful futures because, I mean, that's where my readers like to be. They don't like, I mean, if we want to live in a crappy dystopia, we can just stay here.
Yeah.
So I like to actually create other planets and other kind of universes where there's other things going on. And I mean, they've got their own problems too, but, not necessarily the same problems that we've got here. And I mean, yeah, I kind of get sick of the whole, Mad Max kind of scenario going on.
As it becomes increasingly our reality.
Yeah, I want to escape from that, so I've written an advanced, enlightened society. Yes.
Yeah, so my book series is called Entropy. Entropy is the scientific theory of chaos. It basically means nothing's going to end well, right? So you can see that's what my viewpoint
Most powerful force in the universe, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just chaos, disorder. And my stuff is very much grounded, so it's a lead female that gets super abilities through a genetic upgrade, but in the world we know today, and then tracing that over time. So it's very relatable, but all the characters start off kind of like happy and in a nice environment, and then it just goes badly, because I think honestly that's where we headed, and we constantly try to make things better and then deal with entropy again, and it's like this vicious cycle that goes on and on. That's why Mark Manson has a book on hope. We really need it.
The upshot of this is that the first thing everyone would do if they had the ability to manipulate themselves is to make themselves better looking. Because our society is very, very based on appearance, and we struggle with our appearance all our lives. So if that was available to you, the first thing you would do is go out and make yourself tall, slim and gorgeous.
But it depends on what gorgeous is. I mean, did you see that Doctor Who episode where everybody wanted to be flat? Like the whole thing was to be flat, and one woman just came in and she was just a face and she was just like flat, like piece of skin sort of on a scrolling thing.
But you could also argue that wealthy people are already doing that through surgery. You can spot a rich person by their incredibly tight face.
All those lips that sort of go... I can't even do it, but yeah, that.
But yeah, looking pretty...
I live on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, that explains it. But I mean, like, that superficial stuff is not going to help us survive when we look at things like climate change or the food crisis. And that's where the genetics comes into it, because you're going to have a shopping list of, like, abilities that you could have your genome altered. And it's things like the ability to survive drought and extreme weather changes. And when you look at a nation like China is doing that and the rest of the world isn't, their 20% population is going to dominate the rest of us when we can't cope with climate change anymore.
The thing about science in China is that the government isn't very ethical, and they don't limit the science by ethics. They don't really care. They will just go in and do whatever.
This is what I love about being a sci-fi writer. So as a scientist, I have to sit here and go, oh, they're doing bad stuff, right? Don't dare say anything else. But as a sci-fi writer, you can use your characters to look at the pros and cons, because they are trying to survive. They're trying to make sure that their race survives. They're trying to make sure that people survive particular diseases or anything, and they are doing it because they'd rather do it than not. They'd rather save someone than not. Whereas in first world countries like Australia, there's ethics and oversight, and it could take like 20 years before you could cure a disease because you got so much red tape. So which one do you think's better? I promise you, if you or someone you love is dying, you go to China. Forget your ethics. You will get the drug you need.
You'll certainly get the organ you need.
Yeah.
That's true. I've actually been, in the book I'm writing, they were talking about Morgellons disease, my characters, and it's a disease where these little fibres form underneath your skin and try and push up through the skin. And the theory is that these people that get Morgellons disease are allergic to metal, and it's the metal that's being kind of showered upon the earth by geoengineering. And the people that are not allergic, that makes you a perfect candidate to become a cyber person. And the people that are, well, if they're allergic, then they just die and get sick. So that's kind of wiping out the part of the human race we don't need.
Sorry, you can't be a cyborg, it's got nickel in it. I'm violently allergic to nickel.
That's exactly right.
So, in the course of your research, have there ever been times where you have discovered some or read about some new theory or technology or something and just gone, this is actually way too outlandish. No one will believe this. I'm going to have to make something up that is to bring this back.
Mostly some of my life experiences.
That's a good answer.
I've been in some workplaces and met some people and gone, if I wrote you in my books, no one would believe it.
Now, in my experience, it's like if it's at all probable, it's probably happening, to some sort of a degree. Especially when it comes to technology and what governments are doing, I'd say they're at least 50 to 100 years ahead of what we think they're up to right now. And a lot of this alien craft and stuff that we're seeing is not really alien craft, it's just high-tech stuff.
At the same time, as a computer person, I know that everything inside a Tesla was cobbled together at the last minute, hasn't been properly tested, and is made out of spun glass. And if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing is going to. This is why Tesla's had a reputation for blowing up. Yes, because a lot of code is made. I used to be a code fixer because it's made out of spun glass, and they just make it up as they go along at 3 a.m. and is it working? It's producing close to what I want, so let's just put it in production. And if the Tesla blows up, then we can fix it later.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So for myself as a scientist, I've worked in many industries, including the pharmaceutical industry, and there's horror stories there that I should not tell you. It's pretty shocking. But I've also worked in the space industry, and
They gave my mother thalidomide.
Yeah, I can totally believe that. No, it's really shocking, and just because it's a business and they're making money and they don't actually care about you, so it's demotivating as a scientist. But the space industry, for example, is fantastic. So I've done astrobiology, I've done rocketry, I've worked with Space Generation Advisory Council of the United Nations, and these guys are all big dreamers, and I absolutely love it. They legitimately care about this planet and the people. So I have experiences like that are overwhelmingly positive, and then everything else is like a red flag warning sign that I need to give a voice to. So it's I use my books to go, hey, this is what's going on in science. Some of it's really scary. And then because there's also various stories going on in the books, I also give a voice to scientists who are not getting any attention. So I've been working with cardiologists and people studying heart cells to try and cure various heart diseases. So one of my characters gets one of the most obscure ones. So I got to work with them and now give a voice to, how high the incidence is of cardiac disease in Australia, and just all of these things that wouldn't get public attention. So yeah, sci-fi and entertainment can really have this nice benefit and positive spin to it.
Are there fields of science that you guys are particularly interested in right now that actually they aren't getting that spotlight, that people don't realize are as cool as they are?
So I work with a lot of researchers at UQ who are doing things like curing stroke or pulmonary emboli or brain cancers, but it's just the way that they're doing it that is really, really smart. So they look at peptides that can target almost any diseased cell. So the application becomes so wide-ranging, there's the potential to just cure disease, full stop. Right? And the problem is they don't get attention, they don't get funding. It's like an idea that's just going to die in the institute where they work. And that is shocking. And you can't have Hugh Jackman promoting everybody's cause all the time. So I kind of do what I can do to help through books and media.
I'm so interested in this.
Well, no, are there fields of science or technologies that you think are particularly cool that sci-fi could be putting a better spotlight on?
Well, I mean, I read a lot of Lynn McTaggart's work because her work crosses over between spirituality and technology. And she looks at all those scientists that are very fringe and that are dealing with things to do with human consciousness, which is really the interest of my books. And there's a lot of good work going on there. And what I love about living in this day and age is that you've got that crossover of science and philosophy or religion, where, you know, I was saying to Candice the other day that everything that is not proven is a cult until it is proven, in which case it becomes science. And this is kind of a really interesting time because it's the first time they've all kind of come together. But what I wonder, though, is why you get biology, chemistry, and physics all operating independently, but they don't cross over, and yet they're all really linked up, you know, like I don't get that.
It's because, I think I'm allowed to say this because I'm a scientist,
Yeah.
you're normally very passionate about one thing only, and it's very hard to look outside the box, so I'm an anomaly.
Yeah, it's great to have anomaly. We need more anomalies because we might get more things solved that way.
There's a lot of personality involved as well, and politics as well in universities.
And I think scientists and engineers are actually particularly difficult to work with. It is a personality thing. Like,
I thought you were going to say easy.
no, I mean, I love working with the creative
That's
guys.
if you're a
You feel
scientist. You do
guys are
science.
You're so open, and then the scientist is like, what? Can't you just focus on one thing? And you guys are like, tell me more. Like, it's great.
It's like, but they cross over. Can you not see that there's a parallel here? It's like, no.
Yeah, so yeah, when I did my PhD, it was the first time that particular university had someone cross from science into engineering. And of course it makes complete sense. I was working with a biological organism. How do you mass produce it in an engineered facility? Like, you wanted to get a product out of this organism, and it was the first time they had someone that could do both. And now it's becoming commonplace that people are crossing disciplines, but yeah, they don't really talk.
That happened to me when I did my master's. I had a research proposal for digital publishing as a writer, digital publishing impacting traditional publishing. And right up until the last minute, I was going to do this topic. And then the schools turned around and said, hold on, that's the School of Communications, not the School of Arts and Social Sciences. And this doesn't cross over into communications, and we can't do a joint school study, so you have to change your topic.
Yeah, and that's not on. I
There's
mean,
lanes,
yeah.
you have to stay in your lane.
Yeah, the boxes.
I mean, if there are people here that really want to do multiple disciplines, push it with your university, because like my undergrad, I did psychology and science, and again, it was like, that wasn't allowed, and I pushed them so it was allowed, you know?
Not allowed.
Okay, so let's bring
I
this
can
back.
spot the UQ people here.
So are there particular representations of science within sci-fi that you find egregious?
Yes, CSI.
Please
Oh my
expound
gosh.
upon this at length.
Oh, when I hear people going, oh, I became a scientist because of CSI, I like die inside a little bit.
Why,
Yeah.
why is that?
Zoom
Because
in on it.
like, okay, you know, I can cope with the outfits and, you know, the glasses even at night, but when you're doing cases and a centrifuge that's unbalanced spits out a DNA result and an SPEC result, no, sorry guys, like, real life is really disappointing. You get it wrong a lot, it takes a long time, it's very expensive. I used to watch those shows and go like, their labs are kitted out to the real deal, and there's other labs that can't afford any of this stuff that are actually doing work. Yeah, it drives me nuts.
So you're saying that the TV show has all the stuff that the actual like CSI people would desperately love to have.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Just to zoom in on a thing. Also,
The zoom in thing.
zoom in on that image. Now focus on the reflection in the sunglasses. You can see, you can see the window across the street and the reflection in the sunglasses. And there's our killer. Yeah, there's 1 pixel, guys.
That's actually that's a really interesting one, because I mean I have seen now that there are like algorithmic versions of, you know, like
You
advanced
can't you can't extrapolate information that isn't there already.
Yeah, and Kylie will know because this is what she studied. But just talking about that, the lead in my books has the genetic upgrade, that's your senses upgraded. So just think what you can do if you are a walking surveillance system because your vision's been upgraded, how you can zoom in on something and look at that. And it's not that far off because it's based on a bacterial system that allows their senses. And if you just put that in a mammalian, what would happen? So that's why I say interesting futures coming.
Facial recognition software. My phone has that and it doesn't know me. Voice recognition software. My phone doesn't understand a word I'm saying. I yell at it and it still doesn't understand me.
Traci, anything do you have? Are there any particular like sci-fi tropes or that bother you, the way you feel like they're not showing the science in a way that is as representative as it should be, or that the science is cooler than it actually is?
Well, I hate that we don't allow for the possibility that we'll actually sort it out. It's like that we'll actually come to our senses, that we'll actually, I mean, they did it in Iceland, right? They sacked their government over one weekend, installed businessmen in parliament, and had the whole country back up and running by Monday. I mean, why can't we do that? And I mean, I hear that in the 17th century they actually ate their politicians, which I think is a good possibility also.
Eat the rich.
But yeah, I think that's the main thing, that it's always this dim, dark, horrible future. And I mean, seriously, we're still here after how many years have we been on this planet? Like, thousands and thousands of years. And this probably isn't the first time that we've stuffed it up either, I mean, like, we've probably gone through the whole, AI thing before. I mean, I think ancient Sumerian, they talk about going through all that and kind of having to defeat robots and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's probably not the first time. And yet, here, the planet's still here, it's still looking good. And people are saying, we're destroying the planet. Like, I reckon the planet will just,
Can't destroy the planet.
Yeah,
just
flick us off when she's had enough.
I read a book, in my first book, I'm building a generation ship. So I did the research and I read a sci-fi book that talked about a generation ship, and they're having a meeting and they say, so how many people do we need to ensure the future of mankind? And
2?
Yeah, and then they say, all right, well, the absolute minimum is 40, and I'm like, no, the absolute minimum is like at least 100,000 for full-on genetic diversity to ensure our species. And then I have to work out how much food these people, how much oxygen they're going to breathe, and it started turning into something that would just not. Also, I got to that point where they said, yeah, 40 people's enough, and I'm like, sorry, you've lost me, because yeah, even parrots and things, we know that 40 of them isn't enough to sustain the population. Yeah. Is it about 100,000? You'd know. Yeah.
So, I mean, talking about like the accounting there for working out how to sustain a population, when you're writing, at what point do you have to abandon some of those details because you know that they are going to kind of bog down the flow of a narrative? Where do you leave the science behind so that the fiction can flourish?
That's the craft. That's the point where you have to go, I'm a writer and this is sci-fi. And it's walking a fine line of knowing at the point where your reader is, you're going to lose suspension of disbelief from your reader. And that number of 40 was on the 5th page and they lost me at that point. So I'm walking a fine line of how far I can push your brain into going along with what I'm giving you, and people will be forgiving and going along with the rubbish that I'm spinning.
I've never actually had to do something like that. Like, there's always kind of something else out there, because I mean, there probably is.
Fantasy's so much easier.
Yeah, fantasy is great. We love it.
Yeah, magic. Just magic everything away.
Yeah, my books and the projects that I work on, which are mostly science fiction, again, space and super abilities, all the actual science is authentic. What we're doing to make it fiction is go, what if we sci-fi this up and think about what's going to happen in the future? And that's where it becomes interesting, because it's a storytelling tool to warn us if it's mishandled, or to even point out, well, if we handle this well, because we've got this great technology, how could we all benefit? But yeah, the sort of Star Trek utopia is far from realistic. I mean, when everyone's still warring to own patents or
The
who's
thing
got
I
most
find
money.
most unrealistic about Star Trek is the freaking Shakespeare bullshit.
I thought you were going to say those outfits, you know.
Oh yeah, the outfits, even on Discovery, sorry.
Jumpsuits are a pain in the neck. Yeah, no, the whole Shakespeare thing, you'd be having a lot more fun in the holodeck than doing Shakespeare. They're all so enlightened and advanced, you just want to punch them. Yes.
But I love Star Trek Discovery so much. It
It's
is,
been a good one.
yeah, it is the only show right now doing things right. And the science is great. The MIC network obviously gets me excited because I'm a biologist. I'm like, thank God it's not just engineering. They've actually gone into biology and they've gone into other things and they've done it right. So when I listen to their dialogue, it's like, it's spot on accurate and they don't dumb it down at all. And I just love that. And then maybe one of the only other shows was Elementary, as in the US version of Sherlock, with Johnny Lee Miller, just spewing out all that dialogue. Brilliant.
Can you give me a couple of examples of some of the cool science from Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah, so I mean, we all know about nacelles and warp speed and replication and teleportation. Basically, everything is being worked on except for teleportation, because that's very tricky and it actually...
They're doing light, aren't they? They've teleportated. I mean, a couple of
Yeah.
Australian guys actually worked that out, I think about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And who got Young Australian of the Year? Bloody tennis player. It's like, what
Yeah.
I mean, with that?
It's fascinating. We know how to do warp speed, right? We just haven't got to the point of actually building something. It's just backwards logic.
I love the idea of getting into the teleporter. Okay, I've actually asked this question on Facebook. Teleportation is death. You are destroyed. A copy of you walks out the other end.
That's exactly the problem. There would
It's
be
a
multiple bodies
suicide
everywhere.
box.
Yeah, so that's why it's not been done.
Yeah, but
Unless you're forming
if
like
there
a
is the
wall.
most amazing place in the universe at the other end, only available by teleportation, would you walk into the suicide box so the copy of you could experience it? Half of the people on my Facebook said yes. Someone's nodding. I would die so a copy of me could experience. What is wrong with you people?
But why
You,
can't
you
it?
walk into, all right, that's another scenario. You walk into the suicide box so that a copy of you is going to be generated on the moon and nothing happens. And the technician stops and says, oh, I'm terribly sorry, we didn't destroy you. Could you just get back in, please?
So this is actually a really interesting one, but maybe we should break this down for the audience. The idea of teleportation isn't that you go through a thing, there's some light, and then you're on the other side. It's that you go through the thing, there's some light, you are disintegrated, and then on the other side, there's
Is it cut and paste or copy and paste?
Yeah, it's more replication than
Yes.
teleportation. Yeah, which is very
You
disappointing.
can't.
There
There is
your
a,
faces. Some people haven't thought of this before.
well, there is a theory that you can have like you can have portholes that create a wormhole in between that actually teleport.
That's interdimensional travel,
Yeah.
which is what
Stargate.
my aliens use. I have a living creature that can create wormholes. They can basically manipulate
Space and each
space-time in forward. It's easy. You just access a fourth dimension, fold the three-dimensional space in fourth dimension, bam, there you are. Yeah, it's just like Flatland. Yeah. And the fact that these aliens look like dragons and are really sexy just made it a lot more fun.
So just to clarify, if you do need to travel like vast distances across the galaxy, make sure that you're going through some sort of wormhole or
Warp ship,
Warp ship.
yes.
But
A warp ship is warping space to move faster, right? Is it still moving at the speed of light for everyone else? For the rest of the universe. So you get to Alpha Centauri in 2 weeks. For the rest of the universe, has it been 4 years? Does it take you 6 months to get to the other side of the galaxy, but for the rest, everyone else, it's taken you a million years. I use that as well. The cats,
They
the cats
completely
have
leave
warp
that up,
ships,
Star
the
Trek.
dragons have four-dimensional travel. Yeah. No one uses teleporters because they're suicide boxes.
Well, see, that's why in June they had the spice, wasn't it? And the little guys that folded space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Genetically engineered people who could fold space. Yeah. And so the warp ships in Star Trek is, are you leaving to go to deep space, whatever, and everyone else on Earth is dead when you get there and you come back out of warp? Never addressed in Star Trek. Which is the suspension of disbelief thing. How much are we willing to get? Because going a long way is hard, and you've got this light thing. So yeah, all of sci-fi boils down to, if we're going to go to the stars, how we're going to get there.
But while we're on Star Trek, talking to NASA this week, they are finally doing flying cars for real.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so they are working with Uber Elevate to do air taxis, and all I was thinking was, this is the only part of transportation that Elon Musk won't touch. It's probably not going to work, right? Otherwise he would have conquered it.
The only way flying cars will work is if computers are at the helm.
Yes.
People can't be trusted not to fly their flying cars into each other.
Yeah, and it's the airspace control, radio frequencies, like the networking is crazy.
I know computers. I know how much they fail. I know that the software is made of spun glass. Is this really a good idea?
It's kind of reminding me of 2001 at this point. It's like, no, that's got to be human error, you know. It's like, well, no, Hal, I don't think it is human error.
Presumably the reason that we aren't allowed to have flying cars is also why we can't have good jetpacks, right?
I've seen.
Burns the back of your legs,
We're,
you know.
we're very close with jetpacks. We are very close. I've seen people riding on big drones.
Those water ones are really cool, though. Those water
Yeah,
packs.
they have them down the Gold Coast occasionally.
Yeah, I've seen
it's a
a few
pain,
guys.
pain in the neck when all the traffic stops to watch them. I'm trying to get to Australia Fair to buy my groceries, people.
Plus, I guess you do have to be near a body of water for that to be particularly
Yeah,
effective.
exactly. Yeah, and you have to. It's a skill. It's a real skill. Yes.
Need balance.
What about the? Because we do have like massive drones that people can kind of ride around on. As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Is there? How terrified of that should I be?
I'm more about the cameras everywhere. Freaking cameras everywhere, always being watched. Yeah.
So the surveillance state is absolutely something we should be horrified of then.
Who is putting all of our license photos into facial recognition software? I think the government has put that up as a possibility of putting all our driver's license photos into facial recognition software. Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry in Australia too much.
We don't have the
But it's
internet
going to get
support
the wrong
it.
people anyway.
Yeah, so the NASA guys, the flying cars also have to compete with all the drones, right? Which would be also moving materials from one point to the next. And as an Australian interrupted and said, I don't see any flying stuff in Brisbane. So yeah, it's not happening anytime soon for us.
Drones are illegal in a lot of places as well. Yeah. There is the story of the town that two people bought cars and within 24 hours they'd run into each other. There were two cars in the town and they managed to run into each other.
It's a real life finds a way story there, isn't it? Right, so should we open the floor for some questions? Do we have any questions in the audience for our panelists? Yes, up here.
Okay, so this is the reason we don't have flying cars is because the aviation industry regulated in like the 70s the differences between like the changes that were made it virtually impossible for people to create cars that could do both fly and legally drive. And that's the reason why we don't have flying cars. Like, we would have had them by now.
I've heard about that limitation. It's not the flying part, it's the road part. Having a road legal flying car is incredibly difficult because wings, they're too wide for the road.
Yeah, and they will all have wings. Yeah, from NASA's
I mean, don't the flying taxis have rotors, like almost like a helicopter?
No, it's all wings at the moment. Which
Really?
is, come on, you got Back to Future to work with. I mean, like,
That's not
Even
really-
the rotors have to be on things that stick out from the side, which are effectively wings.
Okay, right, I got you.
It's like that video of the bus thing that's a big thin oval that goes on a monotrack over the top of all the cars until it gets to a big semi-trailer. Yeah, or a low overpass. Yeah, the roads have limitations on their sizes. What was the best book you wrote? What's the best book we wrote? Go.
mine. Yeah.
Hold it up! Hold it up! Let the people see. This is her book. Right. Okay. We are down at the far wall, right down the end. So come and have a look at our books. The best book I wrote is all of them.
With me,
I have no favourite.
I get told by my fans that the first one, like The Ancient Future, that seems to be the crowd favourite, which is about a girl from the present time that gets transported back to the Dark Ages.
You'd
and
love that.
They
You'd love
change
that.
history.
Yes.
So, lots of, she's a martial artist, so it's a lot of girl kicking knights' ass, basically. So, yeah, fun.
Yep, she'd love it. Her face is just lit up.
Yeah, and my books are family friendly. Let's just put it out there.
Mine aren't. My readers have got faces right now. Yes, mine are very not family friendly.
Wait a few years before you read any of those. Yes. Question.
What are your favourite or least favourite or best worst sci-fi movies? Which ones do you love the most or hate the most because of the science or the lack of science?
I hate you so much.
Because, what counts as... I really loved Cloud Atlas. A lot of people didn't like it, but I really liked it
I
because
didn't like it.
It was deep and it was beautiful and you had to think
I
about
thought it was pretentious.
And you've got something like Dune. It's a fantastic story, but they still haven't really made the version, maybe the new one that's going to come is going to be that. Star Wars I saw 10 times at the movies when I was young. So there's just so many. There's not many I don't like. When they whack them out really quick, it does get really annoying because it could have been a better production than it is. But I think it's more about what I like. If I don't like something, I just keep it to myself.
Not going there.
Yeah, I'm actually a TV person, not really a film person. I can elaborate on that on my panel at 12 tomorrow, but I will say Code 8 is one of the movies that I worked on with Robbie and Stephen Amell that will be going to theatres this year.
Ooh.
It is really, really
What was the
good.
name of the film, is it?
Code 8.
Code 8.
Yeah, really good. Again, it's like grounded superhero stuff, really quite accurate. Yeah, please watch it.
Okay, so as you were talking about the teleportation earlier and how it's not actually teleporting you, it's destroying you and recreating you, with that, do we actually have anything like that in science today? Or would we have to make something to destroy and transport the matter itself rather than creating the matter on the new thing due to the law matter can't be created or destroyed?
I don't think we're close to anything.
Well, it would be interesting too. Why can't they store you? while you're going some, because I think they broached that in one of those shows like
Dark matter.
Dark Matter, and there was a couple of others where they actually stored the body. You went off and into a replica body to do whatever over there, and then you came back into your own body, which I like the idea of more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So scientifically, we know we're close. It's still just a replication, so it wouldn't be, your consciousness or anything like that, which is frightening. But yeah, Dark Matter looks at it really well. So Joe Malozzi, who created that show, is someone who I work with.
It was a great show. Dark Matter was excellent.
I mean, if you've seen that, it was like you get into a box, your original body stays there, your consciousness goes to a duplicate of your body. So if you get killed off there, you just come right back to your body. That's really, really smart.
We've hit the wall now of philosophy of what is your soul? Where does your consciousness exist? Is it in physical? Is it a physical thing exists inside your brain? Is your brain your consciousness? We've hit a wall where philosophers have to take over and run with it now.
I'm with Carl Jung on that one. I don't think it's in the body, personally. And I've studied a lot of esoteric doctrine.
Yeah, it's not in the body.
Okay.
When writing sci-fi specifically, how far do you find readers can suspend their disbelief on certain plot points, and how do you find that works into a cohesive narrative?
For me, I think because it's so grounded in the world today and relatable, I've had people read it, go, oh wow, that's interesting, and go Google, and then actually find that it exists. So I think it's very clear at what point I'm explaining what the science is, and then we're going to go play with this a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Like, you've got to incorporate as much fact as you possibly can, push it to the boundaries of where it's going to go. And that way people they sort of like, when they're reading it and sort of going, oh, really? And, and then they go and look it up and go, holy shit, that is actually a thing that exists, I've done that a lot with esoteric stuff as well, as sci-fi.
Come with me, I'll take you on a journey that starts off very concrete, very relatable, very physical, very solid, where you'll think that everything I'm talking about is absolutely real. And then suddenly you'll find yourself on a distant planet making love to a dragon.
Or having tea in space.
It's a bit the frog in the pot here. I'm just going to make it a little bit wilder and wilder all the time, and just ask you to come along with me while I boil you alive.
I mean, I think the thing to add that doing science fiction, and for me, like really putting authentic science in there, or a lot of medical situations too, is the amount of time it takes to research that, work with consultants, and then be able to write it in a fluid way, whether it's conversational or indicating visually what it is. It takes a hell of a long time. So when I work
it's really hard.
It's really hard, and then people just read a book and they go, oh, that was easy reading, and it's like, guys, that was hard.
It's really hard.
And that is like taking that deep science and turning it into something that the layman can just relate to and understand and follow, and putting it in story so it's interesting. It's not just a block of information.
That's why so many of the movies are trash, is because it's really hard and they can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, so I have from Stargate Atlantis, we had Rodney McKay that would just spew out all the science, and he was that mouthpiece. So I have a very similar character in my book that will do it, but it's really a decision-making process as, do I keep it authentic, or do I sort of get the characters to figure it out in a layman way?
Yeah, you've got to always have a dopey one as well that kind of just doesn't get it.
You can't have a smart character doing something stupid.
Exactly. So it completely affects the narrative, which is what you were asking. And when you hold back on the information to reveal it later, because that's best for the plot, and that's your critical high. So it takes a lot of work.
It's mean to the reader.
Do we have any other questions? Yes.
A lot of sci-fi I've read tends towards dystopia very quickly. Do you need to have a pessimistic streak to be a sci-fi author, or does that just sell better? They're the ones that get published?
I'm totally pessimistic. Everyone tells me that. But drama is pessimism. It's things going downhill. So I'm definitely quite dramatic, so it works for me.
Now, I go the other way. I like the beautiful utopia, and then you're afraid to lose it. You don't want to leave, you don't want to go anywhere, and you don't want anything to happen to it. So that way, when it comes under threat, everybody's going, no, you know. So, yeah, I go that way.
I'm just evil and I like tormenting my readers.
Yeah, she does that.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions if we have anything. Maybe not. So, is it time to plug our latest works? Everyone.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so if you want to chat to me afterwards, please feel free. You can just Google Candice Michelle Goodwin and everything will come up. I'm kind of lucky that I have a name that does that. So you can find me on all those platforms. Book 1 and 2 are on Amazon now. I'm working on the third one. I'm super excited. In terms of TV and film, because I work on those, like I said, Code 8 is the feature film that will be in theaters globally by the end of the year. And some of my TV shows are already showing. So there's a show called Deep Six that's about astronauts in deep space. And then I did a lovely comedy series. It was all happy and stuff. It's called Cat Loves LA. And that was a weird experience for me.
Kylie?
Down the end of the wall there, just come down at the end of the corridor in the middle, I have a 9-book Chinese mythological fantasy series with lots of martial arts and Chinese demons. It's set in Hong Kong, Gaiyao. And I have the new Space Dragons, which I've been quietly talking about all the way through.
It's been an underlying theme.
Most of my books are fantasy. They've got spiritual undertones, but most of them are very fantastical and gorgeous. And I go into things like, you know, karma and past lives and all that sort of stuff. But I've also got a YouTube channel for anybody who's interested in learning about writing. There's some lots of writing tutorials on there. There's some vlogs about my books as well. I'm actually shooting a vlog down here today as well. And yeah, I've got a table up the back and I've got a card down there which has got all my bits on there. So if you want to find out more, just come down and see me.
Yeah, and guys, if you're here tomorrow, I will have a panel at 12 on the stage. And again, it's science and science fiction, but I have a special guest fight choreographer with me who worked on Star Wars and worked on one of my projects. So we're going to be doing the science of fighting.
That actually sounds pretty cool. I will be there for that. Please don't let him kick my head off.
I will pre-warn him, yes.
All right, so that is the panel, guys. Big round of applause for our fantastic panelists.
Thanks, guys.